Viking fans, we need to talk. Welcome back to the Eye in the Sky. And first of all, I want to thank each and every one of you that tunes in every single week. I really appreciate you. And also, if you're here for the film, just follow the chapters down below. We're going to get into the film later about the Detroit Lions, but there's some things that we need to talk about first. And mainly, it's just the status of the team. And as a fan, where should we be? How panicked should we be? How bad is it? I mean, is this just a bump in the road, or is this exposing a lot of other issues that this team might have? And I think that's the greatest issue when you go out on national TV on a Thursday night and lose a game the way that you did against the Chargers. I mean, when we walked away from the Philadelphia game playing against the Super Bowl champions, you can go back and say, okay, if we hit C.J. Ham in the flat, maybe we get that extra touchdown. If we hit Jordan Addison in the flat, that's at least a first down, maybe a touchdown. If we have somebody on the inside of A.J. Brown, then that one touchdown, you have the ifs and thens, the plays, the single plays. But when you walk away from a game like you just played in L.A., that kind of opens up the floodgates. So first of all, I want to address a few of those things. How worried should we be? And then kind of give you a guide as to what to watch for this Sunday to see, has this team given up? Are they going to fight? What is going to happen? Now, how do you address a loss like that? And that's the biggest problem, right? You, as a coach, as a player, what do you walk away from the Los Angeles game and think? Now, the player in me looks at what happens and I say, awesome, right? We lost. We went out there, got our asses beat. We're going to come back. And what better place, what better time than to have to go to Detroit, a team you haven't beaten in 3 years, be a huge underdog, -8.5 right now, and say, you know what, I'm going to prove all y'all wrong. I'm going to prove everybody wrong. That's what the player in you should want to do. You should want to, number one, not accept what just happened. That's not us. We're going to go out there and we're going to prove them differently. And oh, by the way, we are going to walk in to one of the most hostile environments that there is against a team that averages 35 points at home this year, and we're going to beat them. And we're going to shut all y'all up, and we're going to prove that we are a good football team. So that's the player mentality. Now, from the coach mentality, there's a couple other things. But let me talk about one of the things here real quick. So much talk about Carson Wentz and what went on in Los Angeles. A few things I want to address. Number one, as a player, you normally do not get to choose when you retire. Okay, it's chosen for you. Every once in a while, you'll see the Randall McDaniels of the world, the Chris Carters of the world. They can come out and they can say, I'm choosing not to play them. For most of us, that doesn't happen. You wake up one day and you have nowhere to go. That's what I used to tell my high school players. Enjoy every minute of this, because a lot of times when you put that helmet away, put that helmet back in the locker, when you're done, when the end of the season happens, you may never put that thing on again. You don't go out and play football for fun. You can golf. If you're a golfer, you can golf the rest of your life. Baseball, you could play softball. If you play hockey, you got old man hockey until you can't walk anymore. But once you're done with football, you're done. And I think Carson Wentz kind of realized that this was his last opportunity to get his way back on the field. Now, so much has been said about Coach O'Connell and the cruelty of putting him out there. Carson Wentz is a grown man. He's been around this league for quite some time. He knew exactly what he was putting himself into. When he met with his own personal doctor, and oh, by the way, there was a time in the NFL when you got a second opinion, that could cost you your job. If you don't believe me, just go ask someone who played in the 80s, 90s, or in the 2000s. Getting a second opinion was kind of a slap in the face, and that could end up costing you your job. No, I'm being dead serious about it. But it's a different league now. So Carson Wentz gets a second opinion. They say, can't injure it anymore. You can just play. His pain is tolerated. And then Carson Wentz goes, all right, this is it. This is my chance. I have to prove to somebody out there that I'm still worthy of this position, and I'm going to go out and do so. That's on him. That's on him to go out there. And if he can't do it any longer, he can't tolerate the pain, that is, again, on him. For the coach, if I look at a player and he says he's ready to go, I put him out there. I know he's in discomfort, but if he can still do that job, then he stays out there. That's how, as a coach, you honor the player and the sacrifices that he has made. But don't underestimate the mortality of your career and how motivating that can be to a player to go out there, because you're putting yourself in harm's way. It's what you've done your entire life. That's what you do for a living. And I got to tip the cap to him. Tough guy. He went out there. Hopefully that part of it is contagious, that the rest of the team sees that and says, look at this guy went out there and put himself on the line in pain, went out there snap after snap and continued to get hit. The rest of the team hopefully will take something from that. Maybe that'll show up this Sunday against Detroit. We'll see. But that's the Carson Wentz story. Now, as far as this team goes, I've sat down and really tried to break down a handful of things that I think are what's affecting this club and kind of how this is how we got to where we are right now. And I tried to do it in a way where it wasn't player specific, because, ironically in football, like in life, the more complicated and bigger the problem is, the simpler the solutions are that get thrown out there, especially in social media. This is something like homelessness. Oh, it's a very simple answer. Just do A, B, and C and we're all set. Well, that's not really the case. When you have a problem like this, you look at what can I control and what can't I control. And there are a number of things that I want to go through that, regardless of who you put out there on the field player-wise, who's healthy, who's not, these things need to get fixed. And because of some of these issues, we're kind of caught in a spiral. So I've broken these things down into really 4 main categories, and I want you guys to have them so you could take them with you when you watch the game on Sunday and use these kind of as a basis as to how much we should be panicked. How bad is it, right? Is this a play or two here or there, maybe a player or two, or is this a systemic thing where, on the opposite end of the spectrum, you got to blow the whole thing up? But these 4 things, again, regardless of the players that are on the field, matter and have been a huge effect and have had a huge impact on this team this year. Number 1 is starting fast, okay? In 5 of the 7 games so far this year, the opponents have been the first ones to score. Why does that matter? Well, you're playing from behind. So 5 out of 7 games, we started this thing playing from behind. 4 of those 7 games, the team went down and scored on their opening drive. We've given up 3 touchdowns and a field goal on those 4 scoring drives, and the last 2 weeks have been even worse. So you take a look at the Philly game, take a look at the Chargers game, 2 drives, 26 plays, 158 yards, giving up 14 points. That's why this Isaiah Rodgers incomplete pass, no call, no interception was a huge deal, because that changed the course of the game. That's stopping the opponent on the opening drive, and you have the lead at the same time. All of this ties into what I think is ailing this team the most, and that's we spend too much time behind. Thursday before the game, I listened to John Gruden. John Gruden does this really good matchup online. He spends a lot of time he was talking about the Vikings and the Chargers in this case. And he brought something up, and it's a stat that's really hard to find. You maybe StatMuse might have it, but I'm not paying $20 a month just to figure this one out. It's kind of ridiculous. But the Minnesota Vikings have only held a lead 15% of the time. And that was going into the Chargers game. That is a huge deal. That is a huge problem. And then Gruden goes on to talk about how, as a play caller, it changes the way you call an offense. It changes the way you call a defense. 15% of the time, that has a lot of effects. Where are those effects manifested? How about play calling? You take a look at this Viking defense. Go back a year. Go back to 2024. The Minnesota Vikings faced more passing attempts. The defense faced more passing attempts than any other team in the league. Teams were throwing against the Minnesota Vikings 62% of the time. Now, this year, how does that number look? It's swung. Okay, so last year, teams only ran 38% of the time. This year, it's up to 53% of the time. That's a 15 percentage point swing. Yes, we're facing the AFC North. They like to run the football, but that's what teams are doing now. They're running the football. And in this offseason, you go into it thinking, we see more passes than any other team in the league. We got to get that pass rush figured out up front. We got to make sure that we can get after the quarterback and maintain that pressure level with just 4 guys not having to blitz all the time. And then you get into this year where you're behind a vast majority of the time, and now it becomes a grind them out running game situation. That matters, right? It's a huge, huge deal. And it's not like we haven't done well against the pass. I mean, this defense so far, we've faced 186 passes, which is the second fewest in the NFL. But we're still 15th in sacks. If you look at sack percentage, which is what matters, it's just the percent of passes end up in sacks for the defense. We're number 5 in the league. We're still top 5 in getting after the quarterback. The problem is when you don't throw the ball, you can't get after the quarterback. And when teams aren't throwing the ball, there's another thing that you don't get. Interceptions. We only have 3 this year. We had 24 last year. So when teams aren't throwing the ball, you're not going to get the sacks. You're not going to get the interceptions because that's how that part of it builds. So we're out there defensively just really trying to stop the run. And maybe we're not completely built for that. But it's a problem that we did not face last year. And the problem I don't think that they planned on facing this year. All right, so that's number 1 and 2. Getting to start fast, and then number 2, trailing too much. The third thing that's really affecting this team is turnovers, okay? And let me put this in perspective for you. Offensively, we've had a total of 416 scrimmage plays. That's 29th in the league, right? That's 29th in the league. So, 28 teams have run more plays offensively than we have. And at the same time, we're tied for second with the most Gibbs. So far, we've had 4 fumbles and 8 interceptions. That is another problem that accelerates the whole thing. If we're not getting enough snaps on offense, we're playing from behind and you're turning the football over, that plays into number 1 and number 2. So turnovers, it's so huge. It's something I think that regardless of who's out there, we need to, number 1, get more of them on defense, which means we got to make teams throw the football more. And number 2, on offense, we can no longer afford to be given the football away. It kills drives. You remember Cleveland, it killed our opening drive. We were just moving the football nicely down the field. Boom, fumble, ends the whole thing. So turnovers have been another, let's say, thorn in our side when it comes to what's ailing this team. And then finally, penalties. Okay, it's probably the least glamorous to talk about, but mainly pre-snap penalties, because I think those are the ones that are easiest to control. Okay, these are professionals. You shouldn't be having procedural penalties, pre-snap penalties. Those things should be eliminated. You take a look, and remember now, we've run the 4th fewest plays in the league overall. 4th fewest plays in the league. We are 8th, tied at 8 for the most amount of pre-snap penalties. Okay, so we've had the 8th most amount of penalties, and we're 29th in scrimmage plays. That number is way off. And oh, by the way, of the 7 teams in front of us, only one of them has also played 7 games. Everybody else has played 8. So that has to be fixed as well. And so where do you start? Again, remember we talked about it earlier with the coaching. Where do we start? Well, you got to start with, hey, we need to get out there. We need to start fast. We need to win the take, give battle. That's another thing that's really important. And then eliminate the penalties where we can. If we can do those 3 things, you are giving yourself a chance. That is the first thing that you can control. That's the first thing that you have to fix, regardless of who's out there on the field. So come this Sunday, if the Vikings get behind early, if the Lions have success on the opening drive, if we're out there turning the ball over, penalties, that's when you say, okay, this problem is a little bit bigger than just a guy here or a guy there. Now, when it comes to these Lions, very, very good football team. They're scoring 35 points at home. They've had success against us. We haven't beaten them in 3 years. In the last 4 games, this Lions offense has scored over 30 points per game. What makes them so good? Well, let's get into the film and talk about this Detroit Lion offense, what the Vikings can do to help themselves out. And really, defensively what you're going up against with this Jahmyr Gibbs and this whole circus that we're about ready to see. So let's get into the film. All right, the first thing to note about this Lions defense is the number of defensive backs that they had down for this game. They were missing their safeties, both of them, very good safeties. Brian Branch suspended for his little Juju Smith-Schuster kerfuffle at the end of the Kansas City game. And then Kirby Joseph, who's battling a knee, not sure if he's going to be back in time, but they were also without Terrion Arnold. So these are a bunch of backup defensive backs that are in this game against Tampa Bay, and the Lions still ran a ton of man-to-man. That's their system. That's what they do. They don't care who's in there. They're still going to continue to play their style of football. And so for the Vikings, you're going to get a lot of man-to-man, so J.J. McCarthy has to be ready. You either defeat it with his legs or you put together a scheme that gives man-to-man some problems. And that's why I wanted to bring this play up from Tampa Bay, because I think it's just a great football play for a number of reasons. And we'll get into it right here at the opening snap. The main thing to understand is who this guy is. So this is Mike Evans, okay? The best wide receiver that Tampa Bay has. And so pre-snap, they put Mike Evans in that spot, and right outside of him, they put whom? The tight end. Now, we've talked about this. Why do teams flex the tight end all the way out wide and put the running backs out there? Because they want to see who's going to cover him. Okay, this is Anzalone right here. This is the linebacker who's walked all the way on the outside. Linebackers don't line up like corners. He's all the way out. Why? Because it's man-to-man, so the quarterback knows exactly at this moment this is going to be man-to-man coverage, okay? So as the tight end moves back in, they're like, okay, we have man-to-man, and with two high safeties that this corner is going to take Evans, and he's going to get help from this safety. This safety is not going to combo man the tight end with Mike Evans sitting here. So before the ball's even snapped, Mayfield knows I've got man-to-man and I've got single coverage on my tight end. And then look what happens. As this route goes, ball snapped, watch the tight end on the bottom. He works his way kind of the outside, and right here, he's deking the out, but what is he doing? He's making Anzalone have to fight around this pile of bodies. This safety is sitting here to help with Evans. He's going to fake going to the outside to try to get the linebacker, but this is just a pick. This is just a moving pick, okay? And that is going to open up where? It's going to open up the middle of the field. Now watch when this football's thrown. Tight end breaks inside. Anzalone gets all tangled up. Here's your two DBs covering Evans, which they should be. Middle of the field is wide open, and the tight end has a lot of space between he and Anzalone, who is a good man-to-man cover guy. These are the kinds of plays. Now the ball's thrown behind, but had that ball been thrown on time and on the money, you've got some room right here to really move the football. So you're going to get man-to-man, and I think Tampa Bay, it's a great football play. There's a lot going on. There's a lot to see, and I wanted to point all that out for you. But the Vikings have to have a lot of this ready, because if you're seeing man-to-man and they're down at least 3 DBs in their back end, you're going to see a lot of man-to-man again this Sunday. One of the many weapons that this Detroit Lion offense has is Amon-Ra St. Brown, who's right here lined up as a slot receiver. Now, with Amon-Ra St. Brown, he's not very big, but he's physical and uses his body well, but it's run after catch with Amon-Ra St. Brown. It's not that's what you have to limit when you go up against him. And if you try to play man-to-man, that becomes even more difficult. And I think this is a great example of who he is as a wide receiver. Despite him not being very big, he's a very physical wide receiver. In this case, Tampa Bay is trying to play some man-to-man here and motion an extra tight end over. They love these kinds of sets where you have a slot, basically one tight end over here and 2 receivers and another tight end to create problems with just passing everything off. But what you're getting is Amon-Ra St. Brown one-on-one with a nickel-type defender. I don't know if this is a safety or a corner right here. The guy, the DB from Tampa does a great job right here of getting his body into him, right in this situation. He's got him lined up, but Amon-Ra St. Brown, the timing of this, watch this. This ball is thrown, the push off, and then gets the football and gets in the end zone. Now, from the end zone, we get I think a better view of this, where Amon-Ra St. Brown right here, he's kind of in a phone booth right here. You got a linebacker, not really a lot of space for him to go, so he can't totally avoid contact, but he's ready for it. He has that right arm up, and the separation is created by two things. It's by extending that arm and then pushing, not all one motion. That's what the referees are going to see. So once he gets to here, see how he has that arm extended? That creates a separation, and then he's going to make that break and get that DB on the ground. So if you rewind it just a little bit and watch this thing in full speed, here it is. Here's a collision. Boom. There it is. Arm out and then the break. Looks like a push off to me, but he doesn't do it all at one time. My point, he's a very cagey wide receiver, uses his body well, and you have to limit yards after catch with a guy like this. All right, so for the Viking defense, the next guy you've got to stop, and probably the most important guy to stop, is this guy right here, Jahmyr Gibbs, and you can tell it's him by how he stands behind the quarterback, just upright, straight up and down. The Minnesota Vikings defense last year gave up 12 rushing touchdowns. 5 of them were scored by this man right here. We have yet to figure him out. We have yet to keep him out of the end zone. That's the one thing that you got to figure out. If you're going to stop one man in this game, it's going to be this guy. And this play here against Tampa Bay just proves how dangerous he is. I mean, this game is all about getting your athletes in space, getting them one-on-one and letting them make plays. And that's exactly what we're getting here. You're just going to get clearing routes down here on the bottom, and they're just going to swing the running back out. You get to this point, how many times have we seen Kirk Cousins make this throw? All these other quarterbacks make this throw. You take these two receivers, run them down the field, clear out this area to do what? To get your running back one-on-one with a linebacker. Gibbs is going to win this many times. So here it is in space. Watch this. He's dead to rights right here. Okay. He's got 2 defenders on him. Now, the mistake is made by this guy, because just like when we used to play against Barry Sanders, one guy's not going to make a tackle. You need help. Force him. Do not let him cut back. Force him to cut outside where you have another DB and the sideline to help. Okay. The one thing you can't do is this, and that's overrun the play, because here comes the cutback. Now you've got a huge problem. There isn't another defender outside of this hash mark, and Gibbs is going to go north and south, outrunning people. So he turns a simple swing route into a 20-plus yard gain just because of his athleticism. So no, you're not going to tackle him one-on-one. You got to know where your help is, and you got to be smart. We talked about discipline when you have Jahmyr Gibbs in space, but even in the run game, every single defender has to hold their gap. One guy gets out of place, then something like this can happen. This is a very simple run, and the point and the spot that you want to watch is this double team right here that the offensive linemen do, and what happens to this defender. He doesn't stay in his gap. He gets forced out of his gap, and that's all Jahmyr Gibbs needs to make a big play, okay? So there it is. There's the double team. That extra arm right here is this center, or the guard works up to the linebacker, gets this guy right here out of his gap. He starts this play in the A gap, but after the double team, he ends up where? Into the B gap. So now you've got a problem. You've got two guys in this gap right here, and nobody in this gap. And that is a huge problem playing against a guy like this. All right. So you go back to the beginning of the play, watch it in real time. The double team, he gets pushed out. Gibbs takes that A gap. He's one-on-one with a single high safety. Antoine Winfield Jr., by the way, can't catch him. That ends up being a huge play. So not only in the passing game do you have to be gap sound, you've got to be gap sound in the running game all the time. The next big challenge is going to be stopping Jared Goff. And what Goff does so well is just the pre-snap process, the pre-snap reads, and really knowing where to look and where to go with the football. Before this ball snapped, if you take a look at the defense, what are you seeing? You're seeing, number one, middle open, right? You've got two safeties. These guys are both split. But if you look at the corners or how the edge of the defense looks, down here, you have a corner who's rolled up. So you got some type of middle open defense with a corner rolled up down here. But on top, you've got this guy playing off and then another guy kind of in on the slot. So most likely 8 cloud, meaning you're playing quarters over here on this side, corner rolled up over here. On this side, playing cover 2 over here, cover 8 technically over there. With all that being said, before Goff snaps his football, he knows right where he's going to look, and it's going to be on the slot defender, the nickel defender. Depending on how he plays this play determines where this football is going, and because it goes out so quickly and so accurately, it matters, and I'll show you. So, sends Amon-Ra on a quick motion outside. As this ball is snapped, watch this defender. He's not buzzing out to the flat route. He's sitting. So right now, Jared Goff's eyes are right on this defender right here. And because he's staying, he knows that this flat route is going to be wide open, and then he hits him in stride accurately. That's what matters. This should be a throw and catch, a tackle for something that maybe will be a first down. But watch what happens. Amon-Ra, because he got the ball so early, has time to catch this ball, turn up, and then do what? Make a move. And that's another 10 yards that he added to the play. Run after the catch is so important. In that case, it's 10 yards. Multiply that over 50, 60 plays throughout a course of a game. Now you're talking about a ton of yardage. So throw, catch, tackle, that has to be the motto for the defense. You cannot let this team run after the catch. We saw Amon-Ra do it against man-to-man. In this case right here, again, it's the timing. This is a short throw, right? Watch Amon-Ra up top. Short throw, step, throw, bang. This could be a 2-3 yard gain, but because the ball gets there on time and accurately, Amon-Ra can make a guy miss and then tack on another 10 yards after the catch. All right, so this next play is really a master class in Jared Goff and knowing what to do with the football, okay? So this is all pre-snap, and there's a lot of moving that goes on, but you have to understand why they move. Teams move. Why do they do that? Well, so defenses can tip their cap. So as Goff gets up in a line of scrimmage, where no one's really set, but what do you see? You're seeing only one deep safety, okay? So that means man-to-man, it means blitz, some type of middle closed, okay? So he initiates the shifting, okay? Bringing the wide receiver Jameson Williams over. Now everybody's getting set. Before he puts his hands up and checks to the next play, again, he's still seeing what? He's seeing a bunch of guys moving around because of the shifts, and he still has single high safety. Okay, he knows what he's getting, so he checks the play. He knows what he wants to do with it. I'm going to check this thing, and I'm going to go to the shotgun, okay? More moving around. Before the ball snap, what do you end up with? You have middle closed, okay? And so that means you're getting one-on-ones on the outside, but where are these guys? They're not rolled up. They're playing off. This guy's 7 yards off the ball here, 7 yards off the ball down here. It's probably some type of 3 deep or maybe some type of blitz. And because of all this, he knows exactly what route that he wants to run, in this case with Amon-Ra St. Brown. Watch him up top. Ball snap. Amon-Ra gets to this point right here, making it look like a skinny post, trying to get this corner to squeeze the best he can because he knows this linebacker can't cover him 10, 12 yards down the field. Amon-Ra puts the bait out there. He bites on it. Now watch. There's the turn, and he is wide open. Again, the ball is caught on the 48-yard line. Look at the separation. Timing of an offense is so important. That's one of the things that has been really off with our offense over the last couple of weeks. Quarterback at the top of his drop. Receivers aren't in their breaks. You got to get the ball to these guys on time and in the right spot so they have maximum separation from the DBs. They don't have time to close. And now Amon-Ra could turn this thing up and tack on another, again, 8 yards to the play. So it's 15 yards after the man-to-man play. It's 10 yards on the quick out, and now it's another 7 yards on a play like this. But Goff is so good at identifying what you're doing defensively pre-snap. You've got to disguise with purpose. How do you stop this machine? Well, Tampa Bay does a great job of it here, and I think we're going to get into where the Lions aren't quite what they used to be, and that's up front, especially when it comes to pass protection. But this is a very smart play by Tampa Bay. They're going to be playing man-to-man here. Detroit, again, goes to this 3 wide receiver set on the outside, but Tampa does something pretty smart. They get the mugged up look. They're just playing man-to-man and man-free. And the guy, the free linebacker of these two, this is my way, your way on the back. If the back is over here, this linebacker takes him, the other one's free. Very simple concept, but it's what he does after he realizes he's the whole player is what's important. Again, keep in mind where everybody's lined up, right? 2 receivers over here. They're bringing the tight end over. Amon-Ra St. Brown, the outlet. He's over there all by himself. And instead of this linebacker in the middle looking to the multiple receiver side, he looks to the primary side, the guy that you need to stop, and that's Amon-Ra St. Brown. So, ball snap, man-to-man. On the snap, look at number 8. He is immediately going this way to Amon-Ra St. Brown. They're like, okay, these guys over here can match up man-to-man, but we need help on this guy because that's going to be his primary, and you'll see it. Right now, Goff is looking out here to the flat to see if he can get the ball out quickly. When that's not there, his next look is right here to Amon-Ra St. Brown, who he's stuck. He can't go anywhere. You got a linebacker walling off the middle of the field. He has nowhere to go, and because of that, this ends up with a sack and a forced fumble. And as we get to the end zone view of this, you're going to see now this offensive front, they still have a lot of familiar faces. Taylor Decker, right here, the left tackle. He's had problems with Jonathan Grenard in the past, and I think that's going to be their biggest worry is Grenard healthy? And if he is, they're going to need to get this guy some help, okay? The middle of this offensive line is really what has changed. Graham Glasgow is the center. Looks a little beat up, a little stiff. He's okay. He's not Ragnow, but he's pretty good. Over at the right tackle, Christian Mahogany, very physical, kind of a swing and miss guy. He can get top heavy. And then Tate Ratledge is their left guard, who's probably the weakest link in this bunch, but it's a very, very good group. And then Penei Sewell at right tackle, who's one of the best run blockers in this league. Still struggles with speed every now and then, but you'll see in this case, again, one-on-ones, man-to-man, linebacker, nowhere for Goff to go. He's looking to the outside, nothing there. Watch the defensive front from Tampa Bay just collapse the pocket right here, okay? And ultimately, it's the outside linebacker makes that second move on top against Decker. This is not Herbert. Herbert would have pulled this thing down and been gone right here. Goff does not want to scramble. He stays in there, tries to extend this play. Ball gets hit, gets put on the ground. Tampa Bay recovers. So if you can be smart and hold up in coverage, then I think you have some matchups that might be in your favor. Get Goff to hold onto the football, get to him, and get him to put the ball on the ground. That's really one of the only ways you're going to stop this offense. And finally, the other way to get to Goff to slow down this Detroit offense is to make the running backs block. In this case, right here is David Montgomery, okay? We've seen our defense do this many, many times. You have both linebackers. They're mugged up in these A-gaps, okay? And so the center is going to go one way, and whichever way the center goes, the running back will take the opposite A-gap, all right? And the rest of it's just man-to-man across the board. But in this case, just watch this guy right here and the move he puts on David Montgomery, okay? Ball snap, the center goes to the left. That linebacker drops out because the center turned his way. Now you have the one-on-one with the running back, and you give him the ole. Now you got the pressure, and then you get the sack. So making these running backs not do what they do best, what they want to do least, and that is protect, is another way of slowing down this Detroit Lions offense. So again, in the beginning, how panicked should we be? Where is this team? We're going to find out a lot of that. And I try to break it down, and again, those 4 key areas about starting fast, okay? Getting a lead, something that we haven't done enough of, and it's how it's affected other offenses and how they have patience now to run the football, and the amount of runs that we're seeing, that's so much more, 15% more than a year ago. And then winning the turnover battle and penalties, especially the pre-snap penalties. You can gauge the mentality of this team and where they are by how well they address just some of those areas. And again, if you're a player, what more could you want after a display like last Thursday night to be able to go and play the defending division champions, a team that has beaten you 3 years in a row consistently in their house, and win a game and make your mark. So the opportunity is there. That's the plus side of this whole thing. And to turn this season around, the Vikings do need to win in Detroit.